Colin Zhu, thank you so much for joining us on the Plant Traders podcast today.
Hi, how's it going? Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's going good. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm doing wonderful.
Good. I'm glad you're doing wonderful. Do you have a moment of gratitude that you want to share with us and our listeners?
Sure. My moment of gratitude is just being alive. I think every day is a new day, and when you have a certain mindset that puts you in a place of, okay, yesterday was the past, days, weeks, months, years is the past. Let's learn from it. What can I do today? How do I open up myself for days moving forward?
Yeah, when you said that, I just wanted to take a really big breath and just feel myself in this moment. The only reason I didn't take that really big breath is because I didn't want to breathe over you on the microphone. But we have to kind of make it so simple, right? Like sometimes you just have to bring it right back to those basics, having clients that maybe can't do up a zipper, can't do up their own bra strap, can't go to the bathroom on their own. We need to be grateful just for being here and what we still can think and do and interact and contribute. Yeah, the very basics.
Yeah. And I think nowadays in our current landscape of social media, the internet, and just the virtualness of everything post-pandemic, it's we have to kind of make more of an effort to connect
Mhm.
when we're in a world of disconnection, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's funny to see the pockets of states and countries that still are taking that into consideration, and it's actually helping us to live more enriched lives. Um, you know, like New York, Canada, California, some of those, states that worked a little bit more like Canada did over the pandemic, where a lot of states in the middle are kind of they're done, they're over it. It's like what that came and went, but we're still living some of the consequences of it emotionally, financially, so many things for so many people. So yeah, we do need to take that time and think about that. So thank you so much for bringing that up. I should have said at the beginning, welcome back to the Plant Traders podcast. So if anybody is new to us and hasn't heard our interview with Colin Zhu originally on episode 340, we called it Thrive Bites and Elevating Your Life. You can go back and you could definitely listen to that for his extended version of how he became plant-based and what changed. But why don't you just give us a short reminder and let people know like who you are and why you're here today.
Well, thank you so much for having me back on again. So my name is Dr. Colin Zhu. I'm also the founder of TheChefDoc. I'm dual board certified in family practice and lifestyle medicine. I am an American, born in the northeast parts of the states, and I'm currently living in Southern California. And pretty much, it's interesting from, I don't know how it is for Canadians, but I know for Americans, one of the things how I just had this conversation with someone else where when we greet each other and we ask about each other, it's more along the lines of what do you do? And then you go through this spiel of, the things that you actually do versus asking them who they are, right? And I think that is a much more profound way of greeting and introducing each other that you can't really find on a LinkedIn or a job profile or a resume. It really speaks to really a little bit deeper. So, in terms of that, I am a son, I am a brother, I am a cat dad for like a year now. And pretty much, simply a human being that is in the world to do some good, helping others along to reclaiming back your joy and health, and helping people to save time, save resources, because we just live in a very busy, sometimes very distractful world. And I'm here to kind of help them filter out the noise to kind of get back to themselves. So I help others to thrive.
I love that word thrive because so many people say, I just need to survive. I just need to get through this month. Just get through this. Just get through this year. But we deserve to be our very best, and we deserve to feel good and have the energy and the mobility and the stamina to do all the things that we want to do in life. Which brings us to National Nutrition Month. So it's March. We're recording this just before March, but it's March now that everybody's listening to this. And it's Nutrition Month. And nutrition is one of the front line runners for how well we can thrive in life is what I truly believe, because what we put into our body would need to be either helpful to our body or filtered out through our body. And if we're wasting energy and resources on filtering poor nutrition out of our body, we just can't be the very best that we could be.
Yes, yes, for sure. Nutrition is very near and dear to my heart. From the first episode that we were on together, if I remember correctly, I did go into why I decided to go into quote unquote nutrition. I went a little bit deeper, not necessarily nutrition in terms of how a registered dietitian would go. I actually went a little bit further in terms of where does food come from? Where does our nutrition in our food come from? How how is our food created, produced in our country? How is it sourced? How is it put together? What are the different patterns that have created and led towards our food industry that has either intertwined, seemingly not really in direct conversation with our healthcare system? They seem to be very separate industries that don't really talk to one another, but the underlying pinnings, especially in America, they have a lot of crosstalk with one another. So, meaning it was very important for me to go a little bit deeper. So, I went to culinary school, I got certified in health coaching because I needed to understand the deeper layers of just, oh, eat less, move more type of deal. That we just kind of simplify things in one sentence, but it's a much bigger conversation that we need to have every single day.
It is, and it's gonna evolve every day, I think too, right? We're gonna when I was first introduced to a plant-based lifestyle, I know so much more now than I did then. But you kind of had to get over the anxiety of what am I going to eat? Am I going to die of protein deficiency? So it's almost like reading your favorite book over and over again, and you find little treasures each time you read it. You could experience it differently.
Yeah, I think nutritional science is a very evolving science. A lot of times everyone has an opinion, right? It's one of those things everyone has an opinion. It's almost like during the pandemic, everyone suddenly becomes a immunologist or virologist, right? Everyone has an opinion, especially on social media. And so it's a little bit challenging for the average consumer to weed through everything to find credible sources, resources for themselves, and also for their family to consume. And in the food industry, in the diet industry, in the weight loss industry, which are billion-dollar industries, there's a lot of noise that you kind of have to go through. So it's my job and duty amongst other colleagues and friends of mine to be able to give not just good information, but also to give people a certain level of awareness, education, so they are more informed when they are making their informed decision making.
So let's break it down really simply for people who might be listening to this because it is Nutrition Month, and maybe they aren't as exposed to plant based or they don't know why plant based. Let's just answer that question. Why plant based? Why is that the superior nutrition nutrition lifestyle for us?
Yeah, for sure. We've learned over time, especially since the early 90s, where whole food plant-based, for example. And when I say whole food plant-based, the definition is actually in the words. When people use the word vegan, Vegan's origin and definition came from animal welfare. It came from the ethics of treating animals in a certain way. But when we're using the term vegan, it doesn't really tell me what you actually consume on a dietary and nutritional standpoint. It only tells me what you avoid. So from that standpoint, you could eat Oreos and Twinkies all day long and call yourself vegan. You can eat French fries all day long and call yourself a vegan. You can eat white pasta all day long and call yourself a vegan. But it doesn't really give me a good sense of how your body is doing, what state of health you are in, and thereby let me know whether to counsel you or coach you on a certain spectrum in terms of your health. So when I teach from a plant-based, whole food plant-based approach because the scientific literature dating back to the early 90s is, tells us that a low-fat, whole food plant-based diet is the only diet that is able to reverse heart disease, type 2 diabetes, early stages of prostate cancer, and we are finding out many, many, many more chronic lifestyle-related diseases. And so we teach from that standpoint. I became whole food plant-based since 2014 after training for my first marathon. I don't battle with chronic diseases. For me, the nuances of sports performance and recovery became more important to me because I started doing triathlon since 2006. And so athletics was how I got introduced into it. And then fast forward a lot of years of researching, reading, documentaries, and then immersing myself in professional organizations that have and becoming board certified. That is how I uh, joined the movement per se in order to teach and coach patients and clients alike.
So you're coaching all these people, you have patients, you've seen the research, we've seen so many anecdotals over the years. What what happens when people say, "But I tried plant-based and it just didn't work for me. It's just not for me. It's not my blood type," or what have you. Like I can name you 10 different things, but
Yeah.
why do you think it's not working for some people?
We have to be a little bit more specific than that, right? I think when we're talking about nutrition, it's so many layers to this because you have to understand what their relationship with food is. I probably would go there in terms of what is your relationship with food, because food is integral for all of us human beings, right? We could survive without smoking, we can survive without drinking alcohol, but we can't survive without food. And food is part of our thought processes every single day. We have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. We make three plus, thoughts and decisions every single day, probably more, because we love to eat, we love to graze, we love to snack. So it's always part of our uh, thought vernacular, right? Food is cultural, food is emotional, food is a act of expression, food is an act of love. Food is economical, food is very political. And so I would first understand what is your relationship with food and how you perceive it. People live to eat, others eat to live, right? So there's different relationships you have with food. From there, then you have to understand the person's own understanding of how food affects their health or not, right? So having that conversation, how does food and cooking, for example, affect them, affect their spouses, their loved ones, their family? Do they cook? Do they not cook? How do they set up their pantry, their kitchen? How do they look at the supermarket? Do they just want to go in and out and just check off some boxes? Or do they spend hours there, right? And how do they educate themselves? Do they go online? Do they go, look up recipes? There's a lot of layers to that question. So it's not as simple as that. You kind of have to go a lot deeper.
I agree. And I also think that we've been trained as North American society to not overeat. And despite the fact that the plates are so big in the restaurants and all of that, but we've been programmed to portion size. And I think portion sizing with a plant-based lifestyle compared to how you may have been portion sizing with more of an omnivore diet, if you're not getting enough calories, if you're not getting enough nutrients, if you're not getting enough of the right nutrients, your body will feel depleted. Your body will feel tired, especially if you've gone plant based for a reason, for a health reason to begin with. If you're putting your body under more stress, you could make that worse if you don't know what you're doing. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think putting food in our system is not the only thing we need to focus on. I teach from many, many different pillars of health. We talk about relationships, we talk about sleep, hydration status, we talk about physical movement. There's so many different things. It's kind of like I use analogies a lot. So investing in your health is something that we need to kind of shift our mindset on, right? So instead of looking at short-term gains, you want to look at long-term dividends. So if you think about your health as a stock portfolio, you don't want to just put all your money into one stock, because if that company goes down, then you kind of lose everything. So investing in yourself means optimizing as many of the pillars of health as possible. So let's just say you have a bad day, you don't eat, or you eat late at night, then that pillar is going to suffer, and the other pillars of your health are going to have to compensate, for that temporarily, right? So it's really about optimizing as all of those pillars as much as possible. Food is a very complex and very complicated type of pillar if we don't know what we're doing. But we can make it simple. It's just going through the noise.
I love that what you said, that investing in your health means, and I started to write it down. Investing in your health means investing in all of these pillars, and I think that that's super important. And I'm sure that you see a lot of different trends. The dog's
Mhm.
barking. I'm sure that you see a lot of different trends from all of these people that are coming to see you in terms of what is going on in their health beyond just what they're eating. So what are some of the common trends that you're actually seeing now?
Yeah, we have a lot of people when they start off trying to eat more healthfully, when they're trying to incorporate more plants, when they're trying to get themselves, we're in the first quarter of 2024, when they're trying to do better for themselves. A lot of times they don't know where to start. They don't have the resources. They don't know how to navigate the supermarket. They don't know what to cook. They don't know what kind of recipes to go for. So a lot of times what I'm encountering is just getting them started. So I know your husband does a lot of physical activities, right? So it's kind of like helping someone to get off the couch and eventually complete their first 5K, right? So it's really actionable, small actionable steps. In the American culture, it's very common to say, no pain, no gain, go big or go home. When we're trying to incorporate healthy lifestyle and healthy habits, which at the end of the day, it's really the basis and foundation of being able to change our health for the better. We have to go small. We can't look at Mount Everest and say, oh, I want to climb that. We have to look at anthills and say, can I just hop over these guys without killing them and make these small incremental changes? A model that I go by is strive for 1% better than yesterday. And what that means is that you're just doing little changes. Seemingly, you don't think it's a lot. But if I were to say to you, okay, so you're standing in this direction, and I say, move 1% this way, 1 degree, right? And it's not that much, right? And I say, okay, from here, walk this way. And then you had shifted yourself 1 degree this way. And I said, walk this way, right? After 1,000 steps, 100 steps, right, you're going to land in a different direction. You're going to land in an entirely different spot. So don't underestimate the power of small, actionable steps. There's a book, I think it's called The Atomic Habits. It's a very,
Mhm.
very good book. Anything that gets you on that spectrum, gets you on that path, that's what we do here. That's what we do in terms of helping people along a spectrum. If, for example, on a high level, on a global scale, if everyone just did meatless Monday, then the world will be better off. It's not realistic for the entire world to be vegan. It's not realistic for all of us, right? It's just not, right? Even the Eat Lancet Commission, which is a huge multi-organization, multi-scientists commission in terms of what is the most healthy and sustainable dietary pattern that the world can be in and still last, where the human race can still exist, right? And they basically have come down to a flexitarian diet where, for example, we're just talking about meat, doing no more than 4 to 5 servings of meat a week. But per day, we could easily just do that, right? And if you look at the longest living people on earth, they only eat meat on celebratory days, events, anniversaries, birthdays, weddings, things like that. It's not every single day. So it's really about making small shifts in your life. It's not rocket science. It's really about how do you frame and look at things, and how can we incorporate small, changes in our lives, right? We're obsessed with protein. I've never diagnosed a protein deficiency in my entire career. The only time I've seen protein deficiency or malnutrition is really when I go to a third world country and do medical missions. That's where I actually see malnutrition and protein deficiency. I've never seen that in America. But we're conditioned to think that it's needed, which is important, but it's not as important as incorporating more fiber, for example. 97% of Americans are actually deficient of fiber because we're not eating our 5 to 9 servings of vegetables and fruits, right? So it's really about how you look at things and just shifting our mindset.
And when you break it down like that, do you think that people are hesitant and people are still anxious about going in there and starting off and giving it a try? Or I guess once they're coming to you, they're already pretty sure that it's something that they wanna do. But, like, what kind of things are people still scared of before they've started to take those steps?
I think a lot of people are just scared of making the change, making the leap, and doing the first step. But I would say to those people that are just afraid to make change or taking the first step is look at the bigger picture of what's going on, right? 71% of Americans are overweight, 40% of Americans are obese. If you look at COVID, for example, what are the common conditions that increases the likelihood of you contracting COVID? Asthma, chronic kidney disease, chronic liver, obesity is what I just referred to, heart disease, smoking. A lot of things, everyone that's listening knows of someone that is battling with heart disease. Why? Because it's their number one killer. If you combine heart disease and stroke together, it claims about 900,000 Americans every single year. So, a better question is don't focus on what scares you, focus on what is the true cost of me not implementing healthy behavior, healthy change, changing my life for the better. All right. What is the true cost? You can talk about it from a financial standpoint. You can talk about it from just effort, right? If I don't make these changes for myself, it's going to affect me. It's going to affect someone that I love, right? Because what did COVID teach us? COVID taught us that whatever you say, do, don't do affects someone else. So we don't operate in silos unless you're just a hermit in the woods. We influence someone else, whether we're conscious of this or not, right? So making these choices for yourself affects someone else, right? So it's really about what is the true cost? What can happen if I don't implement these changes for myself?
I absolutely hear you on that. And in the work I do beyond nutrition with cellular repair and resilience, I often get people who are kind of on the fence of, are they really ready to make a change? Do they really want to get better? What's the consequence of getting better? Because sometimes the consequence of getting better means working harder, going back to work, taking care of a family. But if you're not well yourself, and at the end of the day, you want to take care of your family, you want to be your very best, you're going to have a hard time giving to other people if you're not at your very best. So you have to look at your sleep. You have to look at your exercise. You have to look at who you're spending time with. You have to look at what's on your plate and what's not on your plate, which is equally important. And if all of those things aren't working, you need to look outside the box. You need to, get more creative and see what else you're missing from a third party who's been there with other people, who's even been there themselves. So it's funny, when Adam first went plant-based, he said, because he was asking for more meat. He was like, "Shush, what's with all these vegetarian meals? We need to eat more meat." And I'm like, "Okay, we need to eat more meat." And then like 2 weeks later, he's like, "I'm vegan now." And I'm like, "What does vegan mean?" I'm like, "Is that some kind of vegetarian, right?" Like I didn't even have an idea. And I'm like, "Really? You want less meat?" He's like, "Well, what do I have to lose? What do I have to lose, right? May as well give it a go and see what happens." But patience is also part of it, right? His tumor didn't shrink overnight. That happened over time. So people need to wait for the results over time as well.
I think another thing that I encounter is people feel like it's their fault
Mm.
and everything is just them, right? When in reality, especially in America, things have shifted dramatically in our environment. I mean, our environment doesn't support us. Okay, I'm going to be very blunt and honest, right? If you compare ourselves to the blue zones, if you don't know what the blue zones are, they are concentrations of people living over 100, not just in terms of lifespan, but also in terms of health span. And what that means is that their quality of life is amazing. They're thriving, and they have amazing high quality of life. And they're not as wealthy as America. We spend so much money in terms of our healthcare dollars, and yet our health outcomes is towards the bottom, right? So what is different? What I've realized is that there's three things that are missing in America. We're not in the correct environment, meaning that having an accessible walking path, trail, a public park, for example, is not in within reach for a lot of communities. We don't have a great support system. A lot of times we're doing this alone. A lot of times it's a very lonely journey. You don't know where to go. A lot of times you're not getting that support from your spouse and family. And thirdly, we're not plugged into the right community, right? Right community in terms of having that like-mindedness and similar peer-to-peer support and sharing stories and sharing anecdotes with one another in terms of what works, what doesn't work. How come I like this? And how come, what did you do, for example, right? And so those are the three things that I identified that we need to put into place, whether it's from a city level, a state level, or federal level. Um, it's very, very, very important. So amongst everything.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think that's the difference between those blue zones too, is it's not one person in their community going out there and doing something different. They're all doing it together, and they're supporting each other, and it's the way that they were raised, and it's the way that they know, as opposed to many of us North Americans who are getting sick and then having to undo that sick to be able to thrive.
Yeah. And I also want to add that when we're sick ourselves, right, that wasn't overnight. That took your entire lifetime of accumulation of daily decisions of not eating, poorly, maybe not moving as well as you can, and all the other pillars, all those different things accumulated to arrive to your current state. And so, yes, there needs to be effort. There needs to be time placed in. There needs to be a lot of patience and gentleness and non-judgment from the people surrounding you to yourself to really get yourself back on track. Yes, it is hard, but you can't, there is no magic bullet, right? There's no magic bullet. There's no quick fix to all this, right? Wegovy, Ozempic, they're not going to take care of you, right? There's
Oh,
going to be
yeah.
trade-off to everything, right? It's economics 101. There's no such thing as a free lunch. There's a trade-off to everything. So you want to seek towards healthy habits where the trade-off is you're actually having positive side effects. You're getting better sleep. You're able to regulate your weight without counting, calories, right? You want to be able to set yourself on that pathway where you become more resilient over time, right? It doesn't mean that you're invulnerable. It just means that, okay, how can I become more resilient? And I mean that physically, emotionally, and mentally.
They all do go together, and you mentioned Ozempic, and the articles that I was reading yesterday were not good. They were quite scary, but what I'd love for you to tell the audience, you have, a little bit of a special for the plant trainers listeners, so tell us a little bit about your program and how by being a plant trainers podcast listener, they can, benefit a little bit more.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much. So right here at the Chef Doc, it's 7 years this past January, actually. We celebrate our 7 year anniversary. And it has evolved way beyond that, more than I had anticipated. And it was originally created because I've been working as, in Canada terms, I think we're called GPs, right? In America, we're family doctors, we're just generalists, practitioners. And I spent a lot of time doing a lot of one-on-one counseling and coaching. And I found it under the auspices of the healthcare system is just very ineffective and inefficient. And so I created the Chef Deck as a platform so people can find credible resources. They could find just places to go to. And so over time, we've developed a lot of great resources. And I'm happy to say that since last year to this year, we've developed a program where we could do group coaching. And what this means is that we're leveraging the app that we created last year, where it has education. There's over 200 hours of education on the app where I've accumulated over the past 7 years. And then we also are group coach facilitated, and we also are led by me. It's a 3 month program, and we are focusing on weight loss. We're focusing on preventing chronic disease, and we're helping people getting back on the preventative track, the proactive track, instead of the healthcare model where everything is reactive, where something happens and then you intervene, where we need to be more proactive. We need to think of ourselves as cars. We bring it to the shop, right? You don't wait until your car breaks down until you bring it to the shop. You want to maintain it, right? We change our air filter, we change our oil, right? And that's what we need to do with our physical bodies, right? So the program helps to re-emphasize and emphasize these concepts like what we talked about on this episode: whole food, plant-based, eating, cooking, learning. I teach you how to navigate your supermarket, your kitchen. We talk about how to improve your relationships. We talk about how to optimize your sleep and how to move better, right? So we have our education, we have our coaching. There's a great system where it answers the questions: Doc, I don't know what to cook. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to shop. We have a personalized recipe system that's AI powered, and it helps you to do ingredient swaps. It helps you to build out a grocery list. It helps you to meal plan. And it just takes out the burden of that decision fatigue. You're already busy. You're probably a mom, you're probably a father, and you have a lot of chores and duties, right? You don't want to think about what to cook. So we help you with that. There's fitness instruction built into the program, and there's just a lot of stuff. And for your listeners, we have bonuses where if you want to learn more, we schedule a breakthrough call, whether it's with me or a team member of ours. And if you say the code PTP, which stands for Plant Trainers Podcast, 2024, we give you a lovely, beautiful journal. We give you a whole food plant-based tip guide and a signed copy of my book, Thrive Medicine. Actually, I have a copy. Let me get it right.
Where did it go?
Okay, so can you see me?
Yeah.
So we have a whole food plant-based tip guide that's packed with recipes and strategies. We have the Chef Doc journal, beautifully. This is not real leather. And we have my book, Thrive Medicine, that is basically a part memoir, part action oriented guide in terms of improving your overall well being. And so that is our bonus if you sign up by mentioning that code when you go through a breakthrough call, because we want to be able to meet you where you're at and improve your health and well-being, not just for the first quarter, not just for the new year, but for the rest of your life. And so definitely, schedule a call with us, and we are here to support you on your wellness journey.
That's absolutely amazing. Thank you for doing that for our listeners. And I know that they'll be very supported if they do choose to do that. And if they do say PTP, you'll know that they have um, so much experience already and where they're at. So that's incredible as well. I think the program that you're doing is so great. You're helping so many people. You're definitely on a mission. You're definitely doing it right. Where can people go if they do want to sign up for that breakthrough call or if they wanted to learn a little bit more about the Chef Doc and you?
Yeah. So my website is thechefdoc .app, not .com, .app. So you can find our information there. I would also put in a schedule link in your show notes, so it will pop up when you guys listen to this. And we're also on all, social media platforms. So there's always one way that you can find us and it'll, route you back to the main hub. And yeah, just schedule a call with me, and I'll be more than happy to kind of help you on your journey. And at the end of the day, unlike a diet, weight loss, and food industry that is profiting so much for you just coming back. Because in order for them to succeed, you have to continuously consume their products. We want you to be taught the education and strategies so you're well aware and well armed for your life, and we don't want you to come back, so I want to teach, we want to educate. That's what you're leaving at the end of the day with us. So
Want your little babies to leave the nest.
yeah, just go off to the world and do
Perfect.
great
Thank
things.
you. Thank you so much for the conversation that we had today. I think it was absolutely wonderful. We're going to link to everything that you talked about at the show notes at planttrainers.com. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye bye.